All right, so today in geometry, we are going to start proofs over 4.3, 4.5, the triangle congruence properties. So we have those 5 triangle congruence properties. We're going to prove the triangle's congruent based off of those 5. So we'll start out with these, where I have everything set up for us. So the first one, this is the picture they give me. So given AB congruent to CD. So we always start with our givens. So AB congruent to CD, those should have segment notations. They got cut off on here. So I can mark that in my picture. Those both get a tick mark. My reason, given. So that's nice. We always start out with our givens. Number 2, AB parallel to CD. Again, given. So that means I have arrows. So then, because of parallel, then I know alternate interior angles. So I know that this angle and this angle are the same. So that's going to be my next statement. So I'm going to say angle BAC is congruent to angle BCA. My reason, the alternate interior angle theorem. So we're still using those theorems that we had. Next thing I know, this side is the same because it's the exact same in both triangles. They share it. So I'm going to say segment AC is congruent to segment AC. That is the reflexive property of congruence. We will use that a lot in these proofs. And now my last proof, or my last statement, is to say that the 2 triangles are congruent to each other. And I look at which of the 5 properties do I have. I have a side, an angle, and a side. So my reason is SAS. So there's our very first proof of proving 2 triangles congruent. Everything that we've been doing, we're just throwing it in proof form. Okay. Number 2, given PQ, so PQ bisects angle SPT, given. I'm going to go ahead and write, what does that mean? So PQ bisects angle SPT, that's this angle at the top. That means it cut it in half. So each side is the same. So my next statement, I'm going to say angle SPQ is congruent to angle PPQ. My reason, definition of angle bisector. Okay. Then I had another given, segment SP congruent to segment PT, given. I'm going to mark that. So SP, PT. And then what do I have that I already know by looking at the picture? That PQ is equal to itself. So segment PQ congruent to segment PQ, reflexive property of congruence. And now the 2 triangles are congruent, and I just look at what do I have? What's my property? I have a side, an angle, and a side, so that's an SAS again. Oh. SAS. All right, let's look at the back. So here I have that BD is congruent to BE, given. See, they want me to, this is a B up here, it got cut off. They want me to prove triangle ABE congruent to triangle CBD, okay? So we know BD, this, and BE are the same. That's what they told us. And then they told me angle BAE is congruent to angle BCD, also given. So angle BAE, that's this little angle here, congruent to angle BCD, that's this angle here. So what do I have? I have sides and I have an angle. So I could go angle, side, what do I know? they both share this angle B. So I could say angle B is congruent to angle B by the reflexive property of congruence again. Okay. So now I have an angle, a side, and an angle. So now I can say the triangles are congruent. So triangle ABE is congruent to triangle CBD. And our reason was AAS. All right, the next one. We have a triangle inside a circle. We have to draw our own statement and reason proof here. So number one, MO congruent to PO given. Let's mark it, MO, PO. Number two, NO bisects MP, also given. So then let's talk about, we know that bisect means cuts in half, so what got cut in half? So NO bisected MP, so that means that those are the same. So I don't know why it's erasing my stuff. So I would say segment MN is congruent to segment PN. My reason, definition of segment bisector. Now what do I know? That side is the same. So NO congruent to itself, NO reflexive property of congruence. Now I have three things. Remember, we need three things to prove triangles congruent. So now I can say a triangle MNO is congruent to triangle PNO. And what property do we have? What three things do we know? We know three sides, so SSS. Okay. Let's do some more together. So the next worksheet looks like this. Looks like a homework sheet, but it's not. We're going to go ahead and use it as notes and work these together. So we need statement and a reason column. So number one, segment MN congruent to segment KN given. And then I'm going to mark that in my picture. So MN and KN both get one tick mark. Number two, angle M congruent to angle K, also given. So M and K. So then I look at, in my picture, what do I know that's not marked? I know this angle is the same as this angle. I can't just say angle N and angle N though. So I need to say angle MNJ congruent to angle KNL. My reason, what kind of angles are they? They're vertical angles. So VAT, vertical angle theorem. Now I have three things that are congruent. So now I can say triangle JNM congruent to triangle LNK. My reason, what do I have? Angle, side, angle, ASA. All right, let's look at the second one on this page. Again, let's draw our statements and reasons. So number one, they tell me P bisects TR and P bisects QS. Remember, I can list all of my givens in one statement if I want, so that's what I'm going to do here. So now, what does that mean? P bisects TR, that means that TR got cut in half, so I know that and that. So I can say TP is congruent to RP. But then P also bisects QS, so I know that this one also got cut in half. So then I can say QP is congruent to SP. And my reason for, I don't know why it's erasing. My reason for both of these is definition of segment bisector. Now again, I have two things. I need one more thing, in order to prove the triangle is congruent, I look over here, I've got vertical angles. So I can say angle QPR is congruent to angle SPT. My reason, that vertical angle theorem. Now I have three things in my proof. I have three things marked on my triangles. So I can now state what they asked me to prove. Triangle QPR congruent to triangle SPT. My reason, what of the five properties do I have? I have a side, an angle, and a side. So it's an SAS. Moving on to number 3. So again, our statements and our reasons. Number 1, segment GH is congruent to segment EH given. So let's mark that, GH and EH. Number 2, they tell me F is the midpoint of GE given. So now I need to come over here and mark that. What does that mean? Midpoint means it's in the middle. So if it's in the middle, that means both sides are the same. So I could say GF is congruent to EF because that's what we marked. How did I know that? They gave me the vocab word midpoint. So remember, definition of that vocabulary word, midpoint. I now have two things marked in my picture, but I know that is the same because they share it. So segment FH is congruent to segment FH, the reflexive property of congruence. And now I have three things marked. Now I can say my triangles are congruent. So triangle GHF, triangle EHF, what they asked me to prove. My reason, what three things do I have marked? The three sides. So SSS, side, side, side. All right, let's do 3 more on the back together. Again, make our statement. Back, our statement and our reason columns. This is, let's see, H at the top that got cut off. So number 1, angle F congruent to angle G given. I'm going to mark that. So this is why I had you do that marking diagrams worksheet yesterday for homework. Number 2, they tell me HI bisects angle FHG given. So my next statement is going to be, what can I mark congruent based off of that? Again, bisect means cut in half. I look, though, it's an angle that's getting cut in half. Angle FHG, that's this angle at the top. So 2 marks on that side, 2 marks on that side. So then I can say angle FHI congruent to angle GHI. My reason, again, I had that vocabulary word of bisect, so definition of, but this time it's an angle that got bisected, so it's definition of angle bisector. I only have 2 things marked, but I know that side is the same. So HI congruent to HI, reflexive property of congruence. Now I have 3 things marked. 3 things marked. I can prove the triangle's congruent that they asked, making sure I write it down exactly as they asked me to prove it. What 3 things do I have? I have an angle, and a side, AAS. So let's come on down to number 5. Again, let's make our statement and reasons. So number 1, AB congruent to CB given. So AB and CD. Number 2, they tell me BD is perpendicular to AC given. So now I have to, what do I know perpendicular means? Perpendicular means that they form right angles. Okay, so I can put that in there. I need to now put that as my statement. They mark those 1 and 2 so that I don't have to name it angle ADB. So I can say angle 1 and angle 2 right angles. The reason I know that, definition of perpendicular. Okay. So I haven't said anything that they're congruent to each other, right? And remember that we need three things congruent to each other. Do I know that two right angles are congruent to each other? Absolutely, I do. So my next statement is going to be angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. My reason for that, how do I know that two right angles are congruent to each other? I have the right angle theorem. We haven't used that, but we learned about that a while back. The right angle theorem tells me that one right angle is congruent to another right angle. And so instead of writing out right angle theorem, I'm going to abbreviate it RAT, just like we do VAT. Okay? So now I have two things. What's the third thing I know? This side. So segment BD is congruent to itself. That is the reflexive property of congruence. See, I have a side, an angle. That's a donkey, but remember, the only time that the donkey works is if it's a hypotenuse leg. These are right triangles. So I have my hypotenuse and I have a leg. But remember that in order to have hypotenuse leg, we have to know that we have right triangles. So I need to state triangle ABD, triangle CBD are right triangles. My reason, definition of right triangles, right? A right triangle is one that has a right angle in it. Well, I already have up here that they have right angles. So now I have three things. So now I can say triangle ABD is congruent to triangle CBD. And my reason is HL, hypotenuse leg. All right, so let's look at one more together. So this picture can make our tables. So number 1, they told me angle B congruent to angle D given. And then we're going to come over here and mark that. B and D both get an angle mark. Then they told me segment DC parallel to segment AB also given. So arrows. If I have arrows, then that means I've got alternate interior angles. So just pick one set of alternate interior angles. So I'll do this one and this one. So I'm going to say angle DAC congruent to angle BCA. My reason, alternate interior angle theorem. I've got two things marked congruent. I need a third. They share this side. So I can say AC is congruent to itself by the reflexive property of congruence. Now that I have three things congruent, I can now say my triangles that they asked me to prove are congruent. And then I just have to see what is my reason, which of the 5 properties do I have? I have an angle, and a side. AS. Okay, so that is our proofs of proving triangles congruent. Remember, you have to have 3 things congruent in your proof and in your picture. If you are using something that they have in common, that's the reflexive property of congruence. If you're going to be using HL, you have to have in your proof that you have right angles and right triangles. This next page, this is your homework. So you've got this page and this page of homework. So you have 13 proofs that you're going to do tonight for homework on your own, proving either side, 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 angle, 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 side, or hypotenuse leg. So that's our 4, 3, 4, 5 proofs.